So these are some of the fundamentals of Vastu which are there. And if these fundamentals are right, a person has an amazing sense of peace and well-being when he comes back into his space. Every time he comes back into his house, when we have corrected spaces for people, often the first remark that people make is when they enter their house, it's amazing how energies have changed. I feel now a sense of peace.
Very quick introduction to Dr. Prabhat Poddar. He was the coordinator for 14 years of the planning group of the Auroville International Township Project. He's co-coordinator for the Sri Aurobindo Institute of Scientific Research, that was for 10 years. And he's the chief architect and planning for the Ekam of the Oneness Project. And without further ado, I'm going to let Prabhatji explain Vastu to you.
Well, Vastu is a very difficult subject to explain in a few words, but maybe I can quote a line from the ancient texts, which is the essence of Vastu, and where they say in one line that there are three things that need to be harmonized. The body space, Ghat Akash. Ghat is the earthen pot, which symbolizes the body space. The Griha Akash, the building space, and the Maha Akash, that is the universal space.
Right.
So these are three factors that need to be in harmony for the welfare and the well-being of any person in his life.
Okay.
So that's where we need to understand, and it takes our whole life to understand these three principles of body space. What is body space, what is building space, and what is universal space, and how we are interrelated.
Can you tell us briefly, how does Vastu work energetically?
Fundamentally, the reason why they have put these three factors together is that the whole secret of ancient Indian traditions and knowledge system, which was known as the 64 arts, and of which the architect had to master all the 64 in order to practice.
Right.
So his understanding of the 64 arts was fundamentally based on the understanding of the human body system, how the complex energy systems of our body, whether it's the Nadi system, whether it's the chakras, whether it's the Panchakoshas or the Panchabhutas, how all these various aspects of our subtle bodies can be in absolute harmony. And whether you do it through music, through dance, through literature, through poetry, through sculpture, through painting, everything was towards realizing this harmony in the body system.
Okay.
And the ancients found that architecture and building was one of the amazing ways of maintaining a complete harmony of this complex body system. And therefore, the principles of Vastu have been laid out, but they have been not explained because the explanations require a deeper understanding of how the energy systems of the body work.
Right.
So they've given some fundamental clues, like fire in the southeast, water in the southwest, air in the northwest, and the sacred space in the northeast. Now, that is the Akash, and the central space is the earth space.
Right.
Now, these five elements, why have they put them in that particular order has never been explained. And why a particular orientation is connected to a particular element. Now that is because each part of these elements relates to one aspect of our body. So the fire and the southeast relates to our legs.
Yes.
So what happens if the fire is not in its right place and we are not orienting ourselves in the right way towards facing east, then there will be problems of the legs, some kind of problems, pains, some kind of issues. Similarly, if we have washrooms and toilets which come in the southwest corner of a house, then similarly, these drain out the energy of the space. And in ancient times, these were always an outhouse. It was never part of the main building.
Yes.
Our lifestyles have changed. We have integrated them into our house, and that has brought by itself a lot of health concerns and health issues. So if it is coming in the southwest corner, the washrooms, then you have a problem in your digestive system, in your trunk zone. So your trunk zone, your vital energy, your life energy, your emotional energy is all connected to the southwest.
Right. Right.
The northwest is the air element.
Yes.
And the air element is a kind of an unstable element. And it is something, therefore, the northwest is a place where you would have your garage or you would have your guest room, so that don't stay very long.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also have your study, etc. So
Right.
your northwest is related to your head zone.
Okay.
And your northeast is the total body,
Mm-hmm.
the psychic energy, the spiritual energy of your house. So that's where you have your puja room, you're facing east while doing your prayers and meditations.
Okay.
So there is a deeper intrinsic understanding of the body system, and which relates to the way the building is laid out and the functions are laid out and how they will help in turn maintain the harmony of the body. And this harmony is very much important in terms of, therefore, directly the physical energies because of the legs, the emotional energies because of the trunk, the
Right.
mental energies because of the head, and the spiritual energies because of the total body.
Right. Right.
So this is a holistic solution
Mm-hmm.
to our lifestyle even today. And if we are able to involve Vastu, then
Yeah.
definitely we will have wellness, we will have a holistic harmony of our life and body.
In the West or even in India today, people are buying houses or flats where
Yes,
things are already existing where they are. You can't change them. So does
right.
Vastu have a solution to that, or do you have a solution to that?
Well, Vastu doesn't have a solution in terms of black and white,
Mm-hmm.
because the architect was supposed to know and do the right thing.
Okay.
But now, as time has evolved, things have changed, lifestyles have changed, and we
Mm-hmm.
have lost this concept and knowledge of Vastu. As
Right.
architects, I mean, if I'm bold enough to say, I would say that we are 90% responsible for all the problems that people face in their
God.
lives. So it is all because of our ignorance of the subject.
Right.
But nobody is to be really blamed. We cannot blame anyone for this. Eons have passed, centuries have passed, and we have lost this knowledge.
Right.
Now we are getting back into it, and we are realizing that what mine of information the ancients had.
Mm-hmm.
And once we are able to harness them and use that knowledge and energy, we can, even in existing homes which have been built and all, we can modify the energy of the space and
Okay.
make it like Vastu compliant, if I may say so. We could practically arrive at the total Vastu compliant energetically. What we need to understand is, say, for example, why, if a kitchen is not in the southeast, why should it affect my legs? So what is it that is happening that is causing that problem? So there is some kind of a radiation that is being emitted. And if we are able to understand the nature of the radiation and able to, through instrumentation as we do, able to understand exactly how that radiation is affecting us, then we can have ways and means to neutralize that radiation, cancel out that radiation. So you don't have to change the place. You don't have to shift it. You don't have to break things. So it's an instrument called the Lesher antenna.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a very simple device which is handheld, which was developed by the Germans
Yes.
after the Second World War. And this is a device with a scale on it. And what they found when they were visiting patients at home, the doctors found that people became sick with the same symptoms when they came to a particular house as the people living there as their predecessors.
Right.
So they were looking at it and they called it the sick building syndrome. And the first thing they discovered in their research was that the cells of our body vibrate at a very, very high frequency, which is in the range of 0 to 30 gigahertz. And this is the range where we have the present mobile phones and towers working 2G, 3G, 4G are gigahertz frequencies.
Right.
And this is where our cells of the body get impacted and affected.
Okay.
So technology has brought in its own issues which were not there in ancient times.
Yes. Yes.
So we have to look at technology also from that perspective, as
Mm-hmm.
what are the nuisance that technology has brought in, which we need to rectify or coordinate and rectify or neutralize. And
Right.
similarly, the knowledge that was there in ancient times with regard to various things like a magnetic grid line.
Mm-hmm.
Now, animals are very sensitive to it.
Right.
In ancient times, when the Romans were building their citadels and various structures and buildings and residential spaces, they would let the sheep graze on the land
Mm-hmm.
for 6 months.
Yes.
And the animals being sensitive to these grids, they would eat the grass within the grid lines and not on the grids. And
Wow.
therefore, on the land, the grid lines would appear, and these grid lines are very negative if you sleep across it.
Right.
And there is a very interesting research work done by Doctors Hartmann, also of Germany,
Mm-hmm.
who have shown that when people sleep on grid lines or on the intersection of grid lines, the nodes,
Mm-hmm.
then it is a sure case of cancer.
How have you seen that Vastu's helped with health and wellness?
Yes, so there are certain issues which happen that we need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
For example, your electrical mains is your source of fire in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So that is also a place which has to be rightly located.
Okay.
Now, for example, if your electrical mains comes in the northeast, which
Mm-hmm.
is your sacred space, and there, if you have the fire element
Right.
or the kitchen, then the first thing we check is that if anybody in the house has cancer. It's one of the vital factors
Right.
that totally affects the immune system of the body, weakens it.
Okay.
So this leads to a proliferation of the cellular structure of the body without control, and that's what cancer is. So this is one of the factors which the Northeast is the most important space to be safeguarded
Mm-hmm.
from the point of view of radiations, from the point of view of drains, washrooms,
Mm-hmm.
and fire element. So
Right.
these, when they are active or when they are located in these areas, they can create asthma, they can create heart problems, they can create Alzheimer,
Mm-hmm.
cancer. So all severe Parkinson's, all severe diseases come from an impact the Northeast has on our nervous system and our energy.
So, Prabhatji, when someone's buying a house, right, what would
Okay.
you say are the 4 or 5 primary things you'd warn them about? If someone wants to just go and self do this rather than work with an expert like you, what would you warn them about?
Well, if it is to be started from scratch, one can advise them, okay, you have your kitchen in the southeast, you have your bedroom in the northwest, southwest, you have your garage or guest room or a study in the northwest, and your meditation space or your children's room in the northeast, etc. But then in an existing house, the only way to do it is to understand what is not right with the principle of Vastu.
Okay. Okay.
And then take corrective measures that we do, for example, using various marble pieces, etc., which we have developed over the years. And then we place them accordingly. We like acupuncture points. We do that with the spaces, and we rectify and harmonize the energy of the space without breaking anything. But for that, you require a deeper understanding, working, and knowledge of energy principles and what is all involved, and how to check it on the body, that when we are correcting in the building, it should reflect on the corrections in the body.
What people used to say is that look for the entrance of the house. Today, we look for a northeast or an east or a northeast entrance, and they think that's okay. Everything else is secondary. What would you say?
Well, Vastu principles don't differentiate between east, west, north, south entrances. All entrances are good, but they have specific impact on the people living in that space. For example, an east entrance, again, it has to be in the right position. It's not just any east entrance. There are certain rules and regulations that they have to be in the first 4 divisions from the northeast corner, and then according to the size of the door, etc., that is again to be calculated according to Vastu. Cannot have any size. again, it should be a two shutter,
Mm-hmm.
symmetrical, so that the direction in which the shutter opens is the direction in which energy flows. So your
Okay.
main door controls the whole energy of your space, and the location of it, whether it's the east, north, west, or south, has an impact on the life of the person and how he is going to live his life. So an east entrance gives you a thirst for knowledge.
Okay.
And it can be research, it can be printing, it can be anything, but something to do with knowledge. A north entrance will always deal with finances, with money,
Mm-hmm.
with business. The west entrance is something which will always be people who are martial arts, interested in martial arts, or they don't care so much about the physical limitations of their body. They would like to be warriors, they would like to be adventurous,
Right.
adventure sports and things like that.
Right.
So it can be in army, navy, air force, police, it can be anything.
Right.
So that is the warrior class, as they say.
Okay.
And the South has been sort of very badly misinterpreted, unfortunately, because in the ancient texts of India, South is Yama, or the Lord of Death.
Right.
Now, that has caused a great fear in people's mind that we should never have a South entry. But Yama is also the upholder of the Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
And Yudhishthir was called Dharmaraj.
Right. Right.
So, Dharma is a very important word. And this gives you a balance of spiritual and material life. So,
Okay.
if I'm given a choice, I would prefer a South entrance.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
it gives me that balance, which has been very badly misinterpreted in Indian traditions.
Oh, wow. Okay. Anything else that you want to warn people about in terms of health, wellness, anxiety, abundance, anything that people are worried about these days?
Nowadays, it's more of a chance to have a right house. And there are certain things also which happen because of chance, which is that when you have the magnetic grids, they're all in the right positions. The house is laid out properly to the grids. The
Mm-hmm.
grids are not cutting your beds, etc. There are a lot of things which are giving you a kind of a chance-like situation where you are healthy in your home.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really a great gift to be having a healthy home.
Yes.
But 90% of the time, it's not the case. A very simple thing, for example,
Mm-hmm.
you have a staircase, and nowadays it's a lot of trend that only the treads without the riser. So you
Right.
see through, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it can be in various materials, but it gives you a lightness in the structure architecturally. But energetically, it's a disaster. Because the role of the staircase is to channel energy from floor to floor.
Right.
And when you don't have the riser part, the vertical element in the step, the energy is like going out through a sieve.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't climb up. So the upper level doesn't get the energy it should.
Right.
Because that's the only way for energy to travel up. So for northern hemisphere, the flow of energy should be clockwise. And in the southern hemisphere, it should be anti-clockwise, as you see when you go to the equator. These are some of the factors that we need to look into, whether the staircase is clockwise, whether the kitchen is in the right position and you are facing east so that you don't have leg issues. Your bed is in the southwest, but your head should be sleeping head to the east or head to the south. And you should not be cut by a door or a mirror. So these are things which will help your health and sleep and quality of your health and sleep. Northwest, again, is a second option because fire and air can go together. So they complement each other. So that can be a second option for the kitchen. There again, cooking should be facing east. If everything else is correct, then you won't get headaches, you don't get migraines, you don't get various other issues. Right? And similarly, the north is very important to protect because north is your finance. And that should have no electricity mains, no kitchen, no drains, no washrooms to drain out or burn your money. So that's an absolute no-no, along with northeast. So these are some of the fundamentals of Vastu which are there. And if these fundamentals are right, a person has an amazing sense of peace and well-being when he comes back into his space. Every time he comes back into his house, when we have corrected spaces for people, often the first remark that people make is when they enter the house, it's amazing how energies have changed. I feel now a sense of peace.
Can you give me examples where you've helped people in serious situations?
Yes. Well, for example, we did quite a bit of work with a doctor friend in Munich, outside Munich, who treats patients who are in the last stages of cancer, and he treats them through a complex treatment of Ayurveda and homeopathy and wild plant therapy, and with amazing success. The people really come out of it 100%. Now, the tragedy which was happening was that when the persons left the clinic after a month and a half of stay, and they went back to their homes, there was a sudden drastic fall, and the people, some survived, but most of them didn't.
Right.
So this was something which was troubling them for a very long time as to why this was happening. And then his wife did a course that I was conducting on Vaastu, and how we do the rectifications, how do we analyze, how do we intervene. And then she suggested whether we could look at their patients' homes. And then we started doing that. And now she does that regularly for patients who come to them. She does the corrections of their homes. They're having 100% success because the house was the problem where the problem started.
Right.
So when they go back to their house, the problem has not been resolved in the house. So the cause of the cancer is re-emerging very strongly. It hits. So the first thing, as I said, we look at the northeast, and we rectify whether it's the kitchen, whether it's the electrical mains, whether it's the heating system of the house, whether it's the washrooms. So all these can be energetically corrected. And when all these corrections are carried out in a house, naturally there are many other things which I have not gone into a lot of details. But once all the corrections in a house are carried out, it changes the life of a person, and they've had 100% results.
Where did Vaastu originate from?
Vastu is an ancient Indian science which started way back with the Vedic period, with the starting of how to design and build the Vedi. The Vedi is the sacrificial fire, where the altar of the sacrificial fire was, and the shape of the Vedi, the proportion of the Vedi, all these had various significances. So it started with a simple thing like that. Then there was a very simple thing which was called a yupa, which was the sacrificial post. Now the sacrificial post was a kind of a symbol of sacrificing your ego and sacrificing all that which you want to get rid of in your energy system. And that was called a yupa. Now, this tradition was there that in ancient times, whenever a village or a settlement was to be created, the first thing that was done was to plant the yupa. Over the years, centuries actually, this knowledge got lost in India. But you would be surprised that this is a tradition which is still alive in Thailand.
Oh, wow.
Any settlement happening in Thailand, and since the last hundreds of years, any settlement that has been there, these yupas are still there.
Wow.
And every yupa has been carved with amazing workmanship.
If you move into a house, what corrections what can be done if one feels that the property does not favor long-lasting marital relationships?
Well, when it comes to relationships, there's the issue of what we call the southeast. There is either an extension of the southeast of the building or an extension of the southeast of the property. So southeast being fire element, if there is a higher extension or area in a building or in a land, it causes frictions, it causes relationship issues, it can cause labor issues in a factory, etc. So that is where you need to look at, and there are remedial measures where you can energetically reduce the opening, or you can cut off that section, or you can create another piece of land or property. So there are various ways in which this can be handled. But again, everything has to be done energetically. So these are solutions. Either you break it or rebuild it, which is a very costly proposition, and 99% of the time not possible, because it's not your property, it's not your place, you rented it or you're letting it out to somebody else. So people cannot intervene to break things and redo them.
Right.
So necessarily there has to be an energetic approach. And therefore, this training is very important, how to energetically analyze, how to energetically do it. It's not so simple as it sounds, because there are two types of energy field. One is called the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. We have in India a very interesting situation. The entire coast, west coast of India, we have what we call the Western Ghats or the Western Hills, which are forming like a barrier on the western side, which is towards the east. And the land is sloping down towards the sea, the Arabian Sea, which is on the west. So basically the land slopes east to west. Land is higher on the east, lower at the west, and there's the mass of water on the west. This energetically creates a reversal of the flow, which should be clockwise in the northern hemisphere to anti-clockwise.
Okay.
So geographical location also creates these kind of a sub-eddies of energy or movement of energy. And according to these eddies of energy, clockwise or anti-clockwise, the buildings and places have to be designed, which we call the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. So what it simply means is that in the northern hemisphere, you have the pole, which is your north. In the southern hemisphere, it's the south, which is your pole. So in the southern hemisphere, you don't have a north pole, you have a south pole. So your north becomes your south.
Okay.
So the whole Vaastu principles have to be flipped on the east-west axis. So your fire goes in the northeast, your sacred space comes in the southeast. Your master bedroom goes in the northwest, your garage and your guest room, etc., come in the southwest.
Okay.
So there has to be a flip of that. Then again, the staircase should be anti-clockwise as you go up and not clockwise. So these are various principles which change, positions of doors, etc., change. So the entire coast of Kerala and the western coast, they used to have, they have even today in their practice a Vastu which is different from the rest of India. The tragedy is that both the Vastu people from Kerala and the Vastu people from north of India say that our Vastu is right, yours is wrong.
Oh, God.
But both are right in their place. You can't interchange them.
Yeah. Can the house be opposite a zebra crossing?
So long as there's not a road hitting the house. It's not a dead end, or it's not a T junction or a Y junction. So the junction is not hitting your house. In that case, what happens is it's like a constant beating of energy on your property, on your energy system of the land and the building, and which can lead to a lot of issues depending on which side of the, which quadrant of the house is affected, whether it's the northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. Now, if fortunately this road hit or dead end hits your northeast of the house, which is your sacred space, then you don't need to worry because that energy takes care of it. But if it is hitting at some other place like the southeast, then it can lead to problems of accidents, and sometimes it can be very dangerous accidents. And unfortunately, we have seen a lot of cases like these. But the solution is, like in India, you can put a picture of Ganeshji, for example, facing the road, like right of center. When you look from the road towards the house, it should be to the right of center of the road, and the eye of the deity should be at the hip level. In Western countries, at the hip level, yes. In the Western countries, you can even have a picture of Mother Mary, which will have the same impact. Or some other, one has to test what other pictures or things can be used. But these are effective in neutralizing the hit, as we call, of the roads.
In which text is the definition given about harmonizing the three spaces?
These are like Maya Mata, Mansara. These are various ancient texts, Garud Puran. There are various kinds of, so many texts in ancient India. And this is one of the fundamental principles that they announce, harmonizing of the three spaces.
Do you do dowsing to analyze a property?
Yes. So this instrument that we have is working actually on the principles of dowsing. And there was a French scientist by name Yves Rocard, who was the father of the French atom bomb. And he, in the later years of his life, devoted himself to the research on these kind of instruments, dowsing instruments, pendulums and things like that. And he showed that these are to be considered as scientific instruments because of various ways in which it works. And this was based on a very interesting research work done by two American scientists who were studying the flight of birds, and they found that in the eyebrows of the birds there was kind of magnetite cells which worked as sensors for the birds to be able to fly through the magnetic field of the earth and get back to their places of when they're migrating, where they want to go and come back. So similarly, in the human body, we have them on the eyebrows, we have them in the elbows, we have them under the knees, we have them on the shoulder blades, and we have them under the heels. So these are our body sensors.
Wow.
And we are all the time getting these sensations and radiations from all sources around us, and the body is processing it.
Right.
And we have what we call spindle cells that are there in the body that work with the muscles. So the moment there is a stress, the message from the brain comes to relax. So when you do these tests, these resistance tests, why do you fail?
Right.
It's because the resistance falls down. The spindle cells relax.
Right.
And the muscles don't have that energy to hold on. So it can be food, it can be radiation, it can be anything, which can be the source of this weakness in the system.
Basic Vaastu principles, what book would you recommend?
Fundamentally, it's very difficult to say that there's any good book which is available except the origins. Now, things like ancient texts of Maya Mata, Mansara, etc. Only thing is that these have not been illustrated. So people find it very difficult to understand.
Prabhatji's developed a system. Prabhatji, please tell them that before you go, about your system of corrections.
So these are little pieces and cubes of marble which we use, because marble is one material in nature which by itself has positive radiation. And it is lime based. Anything of lime will always have positive radiation. So limestone, sandstone, marble, these are fundamental materials in nature which by themselves have positive radiation. So when we use this, and in ancient times they didn't have cement, they had lime. And that developed a whole process of building houses with lime and structures with lime. So that was very helpful. It was creating a very positive environment and radiations within a space which would neutralize even the magnetic rays, which would neutralize the underground water streams, everything. And today, if you're able to even plaster the buildings from inside with lime and outside with lime, we would take care of these radiations from 5G towers and 3G towers, etc. also, high tension electric lines also. Yes, so these can be some things which we can re-look into, how to bring back that system of working and use these kind of materials. The second thing is, when we are doing a building or a house, steel is a big problem today. And when we make the structures, beams, slabs, etc., we create what we call a cage of Faraday. And this cage of Faraday has an impact on our energy systems, where it gives you like static electricity. For example, you're taking off a jersey or a jumper, you get that feel of electricity running across your hand or your body.
Yes.
So that comes from too much of static electricity, which is bad for the body. So that the moment you earth one steel rod into the ground, as you do electrical earthing, then the entire building, whether it's a multi-storied building or a single two-storied house, doesn't matter, but the entire slab structure gets neutralized. These are some of the things which we do at the construction stage and take care of it. The other thing is the right location, the right orientation, etc. of building, because we have not spoken of aligning the building with east, west, north, south, and all. Now, there are two sets of energy axes working in the body.
Yes.
One set which align with the cardinal directions, the other set which aligns with the diagonal directions. Therefore, the alignment of building was always according to cardinal directions, and the functions in a building are always according to the diagonal directions.
Yeah.
And it is the harmony of these which creates a harmony of our Nadi system, which is 70,000 in number, 72,000 in number. So the building can play an amazing role in harmonizing all our complex energy systems, nadis, chakras, panchakoshas, etc. Everything. Essentially, it is that yes, buildings can be rectified, buildings can be harmonized, whatever may be the form, the shape, whatever may be totally against the principles of Vastu, everything can be re-energized and harmonized.
Thank you so much, Prabhatji. That was a really, really enlightening talk. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this chat. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to this page. Please subscribe to our podcast on Apple and Spotify, Wellness Curated, and follow us on Instagram, Wellness Curated, the number 1. Thank you.